Thank you very much for coming, everyone. I founded Pacha Foods, a company that believes that healthy, good-tasting foods should also come from healthy ecosystems. We sell plant-based milks made with quinoa and tarwi, which are two protein-rich ingredients that we source from conservationist farmers in Andes. Prior to doing my MBA at Oxford, for about 6 years, I worked with smallholder farmers and artisans in rural Peru. During this time, I became amazed by the potential of Peruvian foods as some of the healthiest, most environmentally friendly, and best tasting foods anywhere in the world. And I also realized that smallholder farmers are the caretakers of biodiversity and clean water that makes all of this possible, but they live in conditions of striking poverty because they can't generate sufficient income from their harvests. This inspired me to create milk, a dairy replacement that has 6 grams of protein per serving compared to 1 gram for almond milk. We've developed recipes that are good tasting, versatile in hot and cold temperatures, which makes it a great choice for coffee, smoothies, or just about any recipe. Since launching this company in Peru, we've entered 18 retailers, developed a loyal customer base, and experienced strong rotation. But the market for a premium plant milk in Peru is quite small, and the true potential of this product is international. So most people are familiar with quinoa as a superfood. What you may not realize is that quinoa is also a super plant that grows in extreme environments where very few other crops can grow. Quinoa grows at 4,500 meters above sea level with conditions of hailstorms, freezing temperatures, intense solar heat, all while consuming tiny amounts of water, about 30 times less water compared to almonds. Tarwi is practically unknown even in most parts of Peru, but we believe that it should be the world's next great superfood because it's extremely healthy. Tarwi is an edible lupin, which means it's much lower in carbs and higher in protein than a bean. It contains about 50% protein compared to soy, which contains just about 35%. The market for plant-based milks is growing rapidly, set to surpass 25 billion in the next 5 years. However, we believe that the market leaders are not addressing sufficiently all of the consumer trends around health and nutrition. Soy milk is the traditional leader, but it's been falling behind and losing market share, in part due to ethical and environmental concerns around GMO soy and fears, whether real or imagined, regarding the health effects of plant estrogen. Almond milk is now the dominant leader in many countries. However, it's pretty low in nutritional value, and some consumers are beginning to convert to more environmentally friendly plant-based milks in light of concerns around the high water consumption of almonds in drought-stricken California. So we believe that by checking all the boxes and building a brand that is trusted for having a positive social and environmental impact, we can capitalize on this market opportunity in a way that current leaders are not. So impact is central to everything we do, and we achieve that in 3 main areas: revitalizing rural communities, supporting healthy ecosystems, and reducing the carbon and water footprints of consumers. In Peru, about half the rural population lives in poverty. Farmers who cannot earn a decent living off of their land have to migrate seasonally for work, often to informal mines like this one, La Rinconada. La Rinconada is basically hell on earth. It's an illegal mining settlement, 5,000 meters above sea level, where mercury is routinely dumped into major water systems. When farmers can earn a decent living off of agriculture, they can stay with their families and communities, which is better for everyone involved. By sourcing native crops from conservationist farmers at fair prices, we encourage them to continue practicing regenerative agriculture. Central to this is the crop rotation cycle. Quinoa and tarwi are part of the same crop rotation cycle, and crop rotation increases the nitrogen and carbon content of the soil. In addition to that, farmers use locally sourced native seeds, which are higher in genetic diversity and able to adapt to a changing climate. So all of this makes agriculture in the Andes more climate resilient. Finally, the single biggest way that an average person can reduce their environmental impact is by consuming less meat and dairy. All plant-based milks have a lower environmental impact than dairy, but Andean grains are exceptional. Much of the world's quinoa comes from smallholder farmers in Peru who only require 200 millimeters of rainwater per year in order for quinoa to grow. On top of that, seeds and fertilizers, which are organically sourced and locally sourced, have a lower carbon impact. And when you factor in the fact that the quality of proteins in Andean grains is much higher than the quality of proteins in nuts or oats, then we have some of the most environmentally efficient sources of food anywhere on the planet. Our plan to go to market, we are currently in the first phase of that through a £75,000 grant, which is currently being executed through the University of Reading's Food and Nutrition Science Department. This grant can only be used for research, not for other costs, but it will cover essential needs in getting this product ready for a scalable manufacturing launch. During our first 2 years, we expect to sell primarily in natural and specialty retailers in order to build a trusted brand identity prior to entering more mainstream retailers such as Tesco's and Sainsbury's in year 3. We're currently hoping to raise $300K, which will cover all of the costs of bringing this product to market in a small pilot capacity. During our Series A round, we believe that we will raise sufficient funds to become cash flow positive in year 4 and enter over 2,500 retail venues. This product will be competitively priced compared to other premium plant milks, and will donate a percentage of profits back to projects that support local communities in Peru. Our current team includes myself and Christian, who is also in my MBA cohort. Christian has a background in brand finance, working at Danone and White Wave Foods, and was actually involved in product launches for Silk almond milk in the United States. We're also being advised by other individuals in our MBA cohort who have expertise in marketing, logistics, and retail. To sum it up, our brand is attempting to rethink plant-based milks and take advantage of this opportunity in a way that provides the greatest possible benefit to consumers, to producers, and to the planet. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Great presentation. I've got 2 questions for you. One, which is very fundamental: how does it taste? And second of all, how are you going to convince the wider public to yet again switch to another plant-based milk product, dairy product?
So regarding flavor, I developed this product over 2 years of selling it in a farmer's market in Peru. And I had to develop recipes and flavors that my customers really enjoyed in order to build loyalty. And now, with this current research grant that we have, we're going to develop formulas and a production process with much higher level technical capabilities. So we're at the beginning of developing that product here with the new resources that are available to us. But we are going to engage in consumer testing through a professional process involving professional tasters and significant samples of UK consumers. And sorry, what's the second part?
The second question was how to get yet another sort of brand plant-based dairy products to more consumers.
So the market for plant-based milks is actually quite dynamic, and there is a large amount of conversion, and some individuals even use different plant-based milks for different purposes. So we believe that following the examples of other upstart brands, notably Oatly in the last few years, and other almond milk brands in previous years, it's possible to achieve very rapid market growth in this segment.
If I may allow the question, how would you defend yourself if other, say, almond milk or Oatly start to look into quinoa milk as well?
We're going to have an early mover advantage on these ingredients because we don't use regular white quinoa. We use a native variety that has a superior flavor and texture for making plant-based milks. And in the case of tarwi, we're really going to be the early mover in building the supply chain to bring tarwi to international markets. And that involves a somewhat complex processing step, which surely in the medium term other companies will figure out, but in the first few years it will give us a significant advantage, and we're hoping to capitalize on that advantage. And the other way that we hope to benefit is through brand identity and positioning.
How are you going to lock in the environmental and social benefits impact of your brand and of your business model?
We intend to become a B Corp, and we intend to keep the UK and Peru companies somewhat autonomous. The Peru company is the company that works directly with the farmers at the local grassroots level, and we'll have a different equity structure. So we're hoping to maintain that as part of our core mission. And also, although many of these things seem very costly regarding sourcing these types of specialty ingredients from smallholder farmers, it's important to keep in mind that much of the world's quinoa, about half of the world's quinoa, comes from Peru, primarily from smallholder farmers who produce quinoa in using methods not terribly different from the ones that I've already described. So we're going to have an additional cost in the form of a fair trade premium, but regarding the cost of production, it's not as prohibitive as it may seem, or as unusual as it may seem.
And if I may add, all the KPIs that Alex mentioned, we intend to measure those and publish those from the very onset, so that will help us remain honest to ourselves, to our consumers, and to our investors.
Thanks for your pitch. I have a question about the farmers and their ability to deliver year in, year out. So if all of your production is concentrated in one area, has there historically been a risk of kind of mass crop failures, and how would you address that if you have a bunch of thirsty consumers here that love your product and their lattes?
Very good question. There is a significant climate risk at the very local level. It would be very strange to have crop failure across Puno for these crops which are adapted to this very extreme environment. And so by sourcing from larger cooperatives that source from multiple communities, and also by sourcing from different regions of Peru, we expect to mitigate that risk. And we're intending to source from multiple regions of Peru, also so that we can deal with the advance orders that are necessary in order to source these specialized ingredients. So we hope to source from 2 to 3 separate harvests during the course of a single year.
What are your aspirations in terms of recyclable, returnable, reusable packaging?
In Peru, we use glass. That probably won't be a practical option here. We're really just beginning to look into that. We hope to use environmentally friendly packaging, but it depends somewhat on the manufacturing options that are available.
So
we need to do
most
more
likely
research.
for the early stages, we would be using carton, which is recyclable. But we are working with a couple of organizations who are working with the likes of Tetra to develop a recyclable version of their packaging as well. As you know, Tetra right now has some issues. So to the extent possible, we'd like to stay within at least carton, which is widely recyclable.
Do you have any plans to move into other dairy products like cheese or yogurt or in the future? Is it possible?
It's definitely possible. We would have to really dive into that and figure out where the best opportunity is. Regarding taro, we may be the first company to import taro into Europe in substantial quantities, and there's a lot of directions that we could go with that. One of them could potentially be protein snacks, but we're really in the baby steps of figuring out what that next product will be.
Can you tell us specifically what you're going to use the £25,000 for?
Yes, so as I mentioned, currently the only funding we have can only be used for research, so this will contribute to all other costs of the business, including creating a great packaging design and investing in branding, and also doing pilot pop-up launches so that we can test the product out with real consumers.
And to understand the packaging is not just vanity here. One of the key entry points into retailers is samples plus packaging. So that will allow us to actually get on shelf, which is why we're focusing on developing that early on. And also our brand positioning, as Alex mentioned, is one of our competitive advantages, and we want to capitalize on that early on.